Wheels and Ghouls. If you've been following the channel, you've heard the name before. James Windsor-Smith, bastard child of Barry Windsor-Smith. No, but James is like one of my favorite creators of all times. I have been involved in a few of his projects, and I've been following him for a long time. If you guys follow my Live in 5 interviews over on Instagram, then you've caught a couple of interviews with James. And I kind of wanted to bring him over onto YouTube and have a little bit more of an in-depth, structured conversation with him about his career and how things are progressing, where things started off, and just give a nice little snippet of who I think this guy's one of the coolest indie creators that I've come across in a long time. So I'm super stoked to have you on the channel. What's going on, brother? How you doing today?
Well, first, good to talk to you. And like that, it feels like it's been quite a while,
It has. It feels like forever, man.
at least verbally. Even the Three Friends was off by a month.
I know, man. Like, I missed this month's episode of Three Jerks so bad. I had so many people asking me about it too. I was like, Rich is busy, dude. He's doing 2 Inktober prompts plus a cover for James.
Well, yeah, that came out of nowhere. Like he was only supposed to do a pinup, but I decided to go all out.
Hey, man, the cover is freaking insane.
Yeah, I've gone over to his page and I looked at the comments, and he's got comments from Ollie Garza, Chris Bacalo or Bacalo, however you say it, and David Finch.
Heck yeah. Those are heavy hitters right there, dude.
Right. Well, over on my page, I've got Ryan Wynn, so that's kind of cool.
Hell yeah, dude. It's an awesome cover. When I saw it, like I was just kind of like flipping through Instagram, randomly flipping through, and it's those little tiny images, and I was like, wait a minute, wait a minute, this looks what the fuck, dude? It was so cool. I had so many people hit me up asking me about it. They were like, "That's just gonna be a pinup." I was like, "No, it's gonna be a cover. It's gonna be that's gonna be a cover."
Yeah, I've already added the logo to it and everything.
Yeah, I saw that, dude. It looks great with the trade dressing and stuff. Yeah, it looks great. So before I get totally sidetracked, let's go back in time, a long, long time ago, back before you got serious about books.
Right.
The two main characters in your book, well, I guess four actually, because Froggo and Popo have also popped up and stuff. So, a lot of the main characters in Outstanding Achievement, which is the book that you're doing now, have showed up previously a long, long time ago. Can you talk just a little bit about like how you got into comics originally and your kind of flirtation with the medium back then?
Well, sure, yeah. Like, in fact, it really starts even a little bit before. I published my first comic in 2010. I was hanging out at a comic store called Golden Eagle Comics. It's in Reading, Pennsylvania. A little shout out there to that little store there. And I totally got along with everybody that worked there. Like one of them was Alex Simotis, or Alexander from the group. You might know Alexandros. Yeah, in fact, he actually is the very first like clerk at a comic store to bring me up when I was a little kid. So I'd known that guy like forever. you know. Well, anyways, he didn't work there anymore, but at that store actually, Mike Quackenbush, the wrestler, he worked there too. So that was pretty cool. I never met him there until he was a customer. But I'm going off on a big tangent here. Let me regroup a bit here. Me and one of the employees of that store, we were just like screwing around, and we made up a comic book where we'd go back and forth, like drawing one panel, and then the next guy draws a panel, and back to me, and back to him, blah blah blah. Well, one of the first things I drew was a computer monitor, and on the monitor was a blob, and he joked that it looked like a cactus. So guess what happened? I decided to introduce a cactus into that comic book, and he was totally different. He was crazy, and he was a bad guy. I remember him throwing a chainsaw at the Green Lantern. It was a Green Lantern and Lex Luthor comic book, just randomly. So yeah, so I took that character eventually, and obviously I made my own thing out of him. Like John is I consider him co-creator just for the fact that he said he looks like that he looks like a cactus. So, if I ever hear from the guy, hey, guess what? I got a new credit to make. But yeah, his name's John Duffy, a good guy from back then. But yeah, there was only the cactus at first. But when I made the comic book in 2010, I decided to make a balloon character to be his sidekick, and along the way, I had made up Princess Popo, and that's it. The other characters are all brand new.
So, can you talk a little bit about kind of how that original comic book made the jump from doing the one-offs, one on, one off, back and forth with your buddy out at the shop, kind of into in it because it did manifest into a somewhat real book, as you said in 2010. What was going on during that time uh, with you to where you wanted to actually take that idea and refine it down to a book and release it like 2000 between like 2005 2010 for me, like looking at the independent scene, it was really it was very niche. It was still, I think, kind of getting its footing with the digital age. And it's interesting for me to know that you were involved back then, kind of in the golden age as well as the heyday now. So I'm just curious, what was going on.
Oh well, I think it really stems from the '90s indie boom. Like I was totally into like Eddie Campbell, like Peter Bagg, Daniel Clowes, like all these big name guys had already done it. I was just late to the party. I was kind of like Nick Cave was in the birthday party where he wanted to be part of the punk scene, but then he arrives in like 1980 or so, and it's like punk's like way over. He's still doing his own thing, but it's just the wave is way over. I've always been a bit out of touch with whatever the mainstream would be, and I just jumped in headlong, even though it'd been 15 years since any of that stuff was relevant.
What did anything, was there like an impetus, or was it just a need to create that birthed the comic book?
Yeah, well, I was already drawing every day, and I was like, I might as well just sit down and draw an actual book. So one day I just I had 11 by 17 paper. I think another impetus was the fact that Michael started selling comic book paper. That it's like right there, like like I my comic store actually sold comic paper, but it was really, really crappy paper, and they still have it just sitting there, like gaining mold, after all these years. It's like $18, for a bag of paper. Yeah, it comes in a plastic bag. But hey, someday somebody might buy it. I don't know.
So it was just having like materials available to you and kind of like a love of the
Yeah, I think so. It was just the ease of it all. Like I was still working at Walmart at that time, and I was just bored and doing that. So
So around 2010, you actually did decide to get this comic book out in the world. Can can you talk a little bit about like putting that book together back then? I mean, I don't know how much help you had, but I assume a lot of that was kind of like trial by fire and error and doing stuff on your own and looking up stuff where you could online.
well, there was that, and I read the Cerebus Guide to Self-Publishing. That was a big impetus. And while I was drawing the comic book, I randomly got a package from Dave Sim, who I'd never spoken to on any level. I've never like communicated with him, and I was like, "How the hell does this guy even have my address?" Well, it turned out I did a thing where I bought a bunch of Glamour Plus issue 1. They were in a 50 cent bin, and I went on a Yahoo Messenger group, and I was like, "Hey, yo, if anybody needs a copy of Glamour Plus 1, I'm your guy. I'll just give you a free copy so you can try it out." So one of those guys actually wrote to Dave and told him what I was doing. So like Dave in reply sent me first a letter, like, and in the package was also a like I can't find it right now, but he sent me a a tracing paper sketch for one of the upcoming pages of his original art. So that was pretty cool. And he sent me some autographed books and stuff like that. And that's how I wrote him back. And then I sent him some photocopies of some of the pages I had coming up. And so yeah, that kind of motivated me to keep going with it. And I forget what the original question was.
Just kind of how what the impetus was for you creating like a physical book at that point, and what the process was like, where you learned from, who you drew from, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, well, yeah, then it was really that guide to self-publishing, really, and I was just ready to go, I was itching to go. But it took me like months to draw that book because, I was working a regular day job at the same time. So it was like having a second, like a part-time job, but making no money at it. And that's pretty much why I only released one comic at that time.
Man, I hear that story a lot. Like, yeah, I really just wanted to get that book out in the world, and then I did it, and I realized how much work it was, and I was like,
Right.
this.
Well, a big part of it was also like I did not have the confidence that I have right now. So like all the characters like were like shallow like versions of what they are now. Whereas hmm like I would just totally doubt myself. And instead of like knowing what the characters should do, I would second guess things. I'd say, "Oh, that's not what so and so would do. That like this isn't like a real comic book." And the art suffered and the story suffered, and so it's still a good comic. It was fun, but it's not what the Papa Balloon and Cactus is.
So, were you like, as soon as you got done, was it kind of like out of your system for a little while at that point, or were you, geared towards doing another comic for a while, and that kind of petered out?
Yeah, I just decided to just draw for fun, pretty much, because I still had the itch to draw, but it was aimless. It was disorganized. Like I would just draw stupid pinups and do things half-assed.
So, following all of this, you get a book out in the world, you're kind of like wandering aimlessly, you're working this job out at Walmart, you've been there for what, I think 15 years or so at that point, a good chunk of your life. And maybe feeling just a tad bit disillusioned with comics, I'd assume, because it's so much work, so little, reciprocity in terms of money and recognition. I don't mean like fame recognition, but I just mean, recognition of people like actually taking the time to say, like, you got something out in the world. That's amazing. Because to me, like, that is an incredible thing. Like having something in your mind and then manifesting it physically into reality is like a work of alchemy. It's amazing and beautiful, and it's why I love doing these indie spotlights on the channel. And I'm curious, you know, uh, how would you explain what happened following that period in your life that kind of brought you back around to comics?
Well, that's like going back to comics. It all follows the Strokes, and I think you're familiar with that part of the story, where like I just couldn't draw with my left hand anymore, and I kind of swore like I would never take my gifts for granted anymore, and I think that led to me being more confident, mentally and physically, at least at that point. I'm still mentally there, but it took a lot of work to get that back, and I've never taken it for granted since then. I actually released a mini comic. You don't even know this, I don't think, called Comics Cavalcade, which with some of those characters, but it also had like Armless Jimmy. I don't know if you remember Armless Jimmy and Biff the Baby Puncher. I had all those characters. It was like 16 pages. So I sold a few of those through the kayfabe comics group, but then I had the second stroke, so that was the end of that for a while at least.
So for and I really want to make a big deal. I do not like to harp on this in my conversations with James, because for me, I've seen people either and this is, for lack of a better term, try to handicap James by saying that he's trying to capitalize on his strokes to somehow like sell or patronize his art. Or I've seen people glorify James because of his strokes. I do not see James's strokes as something that define James at all. I see someone who has just overcome obstacles. We all have obstacles. His just happen to be fairly severe physical obstacles. That and I do kind of want to drive that home to people. Like, I'm not having this conversation because James is handicapped, and I really fucking resent it when people bring that into the conversation. James's story, on the other hand, is a goddamn motivate. I mean, it is like one of the most motivational stories I've ever heard. Because when I was interacting with James for the first, I think like 3 or 4 months, I had no idea about any of the backstory. I just knew his art. I just knew his personality, how magnanimous and intelligent and witty he is online and fun to interact with. And like found out he had had one stroke, he had overcome it, learned how to draw again, bam, got hit with another stroke, lost the other hand, said fucking and learn how to redraw digitally. Went totally Frank Frazetta on everybody. Can you talk a little bit about, the you were all traditional. You did all pen and ink on paper, and through the series of the strokes, even though you worked really hard and kicked ass at your rehab, you hadn't gotten back to where you felt where you could do your art physically anymore, and you kind of had to make the jump to digital, which is another huge learning curve.
Right. Oh, hold on. It's like, no, sorry. I was silently burping.
That's
But
why they make
anyway,
edits.
I just want to say, like, actually having the stroke was actually a big part of my story, but at the same time, like healing, like my hand also healed my mind, which was already fucked up from before. So it's like so much like of stuff in my life actually benefited from me having a stroke, really, you know? And
I
yeah, I do remember those days though that they were pretty fun. I got to be a smartass quite a bit, and then we had a lot of fun back then.
Yeah, I just don't I it, they I just don't like it when people use that to define you.
Yeah, yeah,
I think it's confine. I think it's shallow-minded and confining, and I think it short sells you and your art.
sure, I
That's
get you.
that's all I meant. But can you talk a little bit about your transition from having to go physical to from traditional physical art over to digital? Was that a difficult thing for you? How was that learning curve?
It was fairly easy. What the first thing I did was first I haven't had a computer in about 10 or 12 years before that. Like, I did everything from my phone, you know. So like all of my Instagram posts were my art with a shitty photograph of it. Basically, I didn't have a scanner or anything like that. But after the second stroke, and after a while of drawing and trying and making tons of messes everywhere, because like there's piles of paper, and I'm pretty limited in my cleanup skills. I talked to Richard, Richard Friend, and he was like, dude, it's time to switch to digital. Here's exactly what the pros use at DC. Here's what the colorists use, and he basically told me every little thing to get that a professional would get, and I decided to just take my money and just throw it at the wall and get the exact equipment, and that's pretty much what I did. Now, the actual learning, what I did was I went and took really stupid courses from YouTube on how to draw. It didn't matter how simple it was. I just needed to learn the actual basics instead of jumping into it and thinking, "Oh, I know how to draw. I can do this. I can do that." It's like, no, it's the same as having a stroke. You have to relearn how to do things. And so I had to relearn how to get to the exact point that I would get to with a pencil and pen, and to a limited extent my coloring. Like, I don't think my coloring has recovered yet, but if you saw the axe wielder John picture that I had done, like, I'm starting to learn little techniques and stuff that I didn't even know before. So I think I'm actually going to become a better colorist in the future, and who knows, maybe there'll be another Christmas special like in 2024.
I'm looking forward to it, man. I saw like when you did those pieces that were pulling in like a Droulet and taupey coloring and really throwing some really interesting color choices in there. I can see definite little jumps and hops in the evolution of your mind process, you know, when you're picking stuff apart.
Right, thanks.
Dude, I'm excited to see where you're going. So, you know, you made the transition over to digital, and I know there was a fairly pivotal publication during your stroke as well that happened where, you know, a lot of people kind of stepped forward and really encouraged you to keep drawing, and that played a pretty important part in you sticking around in the game as well, as I understand it.
Yeah, that was actually Image Grand Design, and they also did Image Grand Disaster at the same time. I actually I drew the material for Grand Disaster before my second stroke, but I was supposed to contribute to Grand Design, and that story wasn't drawn yet. And when I had the second stroke, they one of the guys, I forget his name for the life of me right now, but he said to me, "Hey man, like we really want you to participate in this thing," and it was really encouraging. And from rehab, I actually drew a Max pinup, which you might be familiar with. The Max, I don't know if you're familiar with the character, but
Never heard of them.
oh, he was created by a guy named Sam Keith, actually. You know,
Yeah,
like,
I'm pretty sure something about that. I before E or some such like that.
I don't know. I've never heard of him really, but I was just kidding. I just read an issue of Wizard earlier. No, but kidding aside, it took that encouragement. I actually drew in rehab on a piece of like tracing. No, on a piece of typing paper. I did one of those shitty photographs with my phone, sent it to the guy. He inked it, and he got like a pro colorist to color it. And like a few months later, lo and behold, it was actually in there. So I feel I owe a pretty big debt to pretty much all of the kayfabe group. Not so much the guys that do the channel, but the actual group itself.
Cartoonist Kayfabe Ringside Seats is a really cool Facebook group. I do encourage anybody who's like positive and proactive about comic books in any manner, like independent, mainstream, whatever it may be, get on there, join the conversation, meet some really interesting people. You'll find some cool books. There's been some great publications come out of it. So
Oh yeah, and shout out to William Hoffneck, one of the moderators there, and Eli Schwab. Like they've just been nothing but supportive of like all creative elements, and everybody who like goes to these guys, they get a boost.
Eli is absolutely awesome. I love interacting with Eli, man. Cosmic Lion is going to be going some cool places. I'm betting on them.
I gotta say, every single book that I've bought from them has been a must read.
Dude, I like after Space Nights, they had me hooked. I'm really looking forward to their new book that's getting ready to drop on Halloween. They're gonna be sending me a copy of that. I'm stoked. But we're here to talk about James Windsor-Smith tonight. Um, let's talk a little bit about when did you get serious about getting your current series, Outstanding Achievement Presents Papa Balloon and Cactus out? How did that come about?
It was about a year after I switched to digital. I did the same thing I did the first time, where I just like sat down and started drawing pages. I did about 40 pages actually, like before I released the first issue. But I was like, you know what? Instead of like keeping going, maybe I should actually publish something. So I decided to just open a Kickstarter, and I was like, hey, I've got a new comic, blah blah blah. Check it out. Then I took those 40 pages and I rearranged them, reorganized like what I had done, rewrote some of the stuff I did, and lo and behold, well, you've seen issue number one. Like that was actually originally about 40 pages, but I boiled it down to about 22, like eventually. And some of the pages continued into issue two, but by then, like the story had changed so much that I had to like almost redraw everything, or just kind of shoehorn in like one or two little things, when I got to the second issue.
That's rough, man. End up
Well,
chucking about 20 pages of work.
Yeah, we but like at the time I was just doing it for fun. I was doing it as professionally as I could, but it was basically for fun originally, and I think that spirit continues with the book. It is still pretty fun to actually draw the new ones. Now the real challenge was right after the first issue came out, which was right about now of that year, about a year ago. It was already in people's hands. I decided, all right, I want to do a Christmas special, and I want it in color. So like I just jumped right into that, and that was all original. None like I had nothing prepared. Like I had to do something Christmas themed, which turned out to have Dracula in it, but somehow it's a Christmas theme. But yeah, like I just jumped into it and I decided whatever comes out, it comes out, And it actually came out in January, early in January. So I did miss the deadline that I had originally set by about like a week and a half. But I had been hospitalized again for unrelated like non-strokey things, but I had like a pretty bad back issue at the time. Like my back actually acted up because of COVID. It was just a really strange reaction to getting COVID. But yeah, I they were really concerned with my spinal column, and they were thinking I was going to have to get surgery. Then after like a week or so, I was just back to normal.
Wow.
Yeah, I think what it is it compromises my immune system because I got it again, and I had a completely different circumstance, but it was like something that had always been lingering, but it became like full blown for about a week again. It was sleep deprivation. Like I couldn't sleep for several days.
Oh, that is the worst, man. Oh,
Yeah, you can relate.
oh man. You start getting all crazy and punch drunk by about the middle of that second day, dude. You get 3 or 4 days in, it's like the little pink elephants. Woo!
And it's
Fuck,
like I
man.
don't have a day job or anything, but it was like it was enough that I had to go to a doctor in both instances.
I think one of the most interesting things about this series for me is that it is a collaborative thing for you. You always have other people in the comic book, and you always collaborate with other creators on a few different levels with the book. Can you talk a little bit about where that originates for you?
Sure, and it's really morphed to since I first started doing that. Originally, it was just anybody that was in the outstanding achievement group, but now that I promote and everything. But now I think as long as you're a creator, I'm going to support you. Like like let's say you, for instance, if you were not actually in that group, you would still be like inking some pages on that because I believe in you. I think you really got something, and it gives you like a little window, something you can point at and say, "Hey, I'm involved in this comic." Hold something up and then say, "Hey, here I am." And there's a lot of creators that do have books out there that I do want to promote their stuff because I want people to experience the same awesomeness I experienced.
It's such that's I know that feeling so much. That's what the indie spotlight is all about for me,
Totally,
man.
yeah. I was gonna say that's so indie spotlight.
It's like I just love it. I just got a new book in today that I'm like biting at the bit to talk about, man. I can't wait to share it with everybody. Uh and it's like a book I've never heard of at all. It's like this great Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles spin-off book. It's fucking amazing.
So
Uh
you've never heard of the Ninja Turtles, huh?
Never heard of them. Never heard of them. I definitely did not grow up through all of the. But no, it's like this spin-off book that's like an unofficial spin-off, and like it like takes place like right after the first I think it's like issue 2, and like it's an alternate like telling. I've never seen anything that looks this much like an actual lost issue of like Eastman and Laird's like Turtles. It's freaking
Nice.
me out, dude. Freaking me
I've
out.
actually read the first four issues of Ninja Turtles this year in preparation for one of our shows. I had never read any of the original stuff, and I loved it. I grew up on the Archie series myself. Like I had no comic store, early on, so that was my first experience.
Yeah, I grew up like working at a comic shop because I was so poor. Like I worked at the shop for nothing, but like they gave me a discount on my books, and the guy there let me read all of his own personal books. So I read all those old TMNT books, and I think I was like one of the few kids that I knew that like was not upset when he'd see like new pure permutations of the turtles because I'm like, well, yeah, it changes like every 3 issues. What do you get?
Right.
What turtles are you guys reading?
Yeah, exactly, you know. And yeah, you know, my current comic store has always been where it is, but you know, I eventually got a driver's license so I could actually go to the comic store. But yeah, it's about 30 minutes away.
Oh man, I miss having an actual local comic shop. It breaks
Well,
my heart.
where's your closest shop right now?
Mine is about 40 minutes away, but and like not to denigrate them because they're actually are a really great shop. They treat me really well, but they're like a trading card and like collectibles, and they have like
Right.
new stuff. Like
Yeah,
there's
you know, there's always the nice store, and you feel bad because it's not the store that you like.
Well, it's like I just miss like back issues, and there is like technically one store that's around me, but I won't go there. The guy who owns it is like just like a despicable human being. Like if
No, I get that.
oh
I've been
dude,
pretty lucky with comic stores. I've gotten along with the guys I've met so far.
yeah, no. I like after he went on his last like racist tirade in front of my like seven I think my daughter was like 6 at the time, and he was just yelling and screaming about this racist insanity in his shop. I was like, yeah, I can't come back here anymore. The
Yeah.
shop is dead to me.
That's like go to the Blue Lives Matter store.
Dude, that's where he started. He started off on that, and he's like, blah blah matter and blah blah. I was like, oh, this is gonna get ugly, isn't it? This
Yeah,
is just
maybe Alan Moore's right about fascism.
dude. Alan Moore is right about a lot of stuff.
Right,
Still
but
want still want to slap the smug off his
no,
face.
I hear you.
So you know, the series is really heavily based around collaboration. Like you said, that's kind of like changed and evolved and grown over the series. You've been publishing for a little over a year, I think, at this point. You've got 4 issues out. Uh, they keep changing and evolving and taking on their own distinct personality and flavor and feel. So I get a lot, I get the feeling that a lot of that is like spontaneous and kind of just in the creation and the process of kind of birthing those comics. Do you have any conscious plans on where you'd like to take the series or things that you'd like to see happen with the series? You've had 2 covers by Dave Sim at this point. You've got a cover by Richard Friend at this point. Like Rich did a pinup for your last book. Riley the Teenage Bigfoot was in your first issue. Like, where are you headed with the series?
Yeah, well, even look at the beginning. Something we both can give acknowledgement to is Sam J Royale. Those were like really wonderful covers. Like what a way to start, you know. But as for the future, what I plan to do, well is first the only thing I have planned is my next backup feature. I want to have Terry S. Wood bring back Wandering Star, even for just a 4 page little story there. But she's already thanked me because like it's a way for her and her kids to really get together creatively and really get involved. And you know, I really love that. It's really cool. But that's the only thing I have actually in stone that I want in the next issue. But as for well, I don't know. Did you actually read the PDF I had sent of the latest issue or just the previous issues?
I've read it. Yeah, no.
Okay, cool. So you know where it ends up. With obviously no spoilers or anything, but I want to take that and basically focus a little bit on the human hot dog and make everybody else a secondary character for now. And then now he's got like a superhero persona. That was actually always my plan. Even like about 2 years ago, about a year before I published the comic, like I originally was trying to make the human hot dog his own comic book. Well, there's going to be at least one issue where he's the central figure of the book. because he did something that wasn't necessarily a positive thing by the very end, even though you might feel a certain way about who he did that to. You know what I'm saying? But I think make him the spotlight and make him a vigilante for at least one issue. You know, everything has a way of resolving itself. And, you know, I think there's a lot of potential of expanding that character. I also want to expand. I don't think I've ever told you this. Maybe I have. If I have, just go ahead and stop me. But Papa Balloon is actually the most powerful comic character in the book. He's actually a Norse god. He's the Norse god of air, but he's trapped inside of a latex body. So he's actually pretty important. So he's also, as you know from the Christmas special, Dracula's father and Santa Claus's father. He's pretty much created all these giant mythological figures that are in our society now. But you know the frog went to hell in the last issue. He had died and everything. Well, his way back is through Papa Balloon, who will know the Norse god of death and all that, or the Hela, you know, and all that. And I think that'd be a good way to have fun drawing a Jack Kirby kind of fun style, just to draw those gods.
That's a freaking crazy man. Like everybody always asks me, like, "Kid, what's the book about?" And I'm like, madcap insanity is surrounded by like this really great sense of witticism, and that's the best.
That or it's a balloon or and a cactus, you know. It's like, how do you really sum it up?
I'm just like, do you like funny books? Do you like James's illustrations? Buy the book, give it a shot. I guarantee you, you will be sold on this thing, man.
Yeah, you know, like I was talking to Rich earlier, and he was saying like I'm in that weird position where I'm doing something original, which nobody's doing anything like this. You can't compare this to anything. Even the way I'm drawing it is not something that's been done before. But that actually is kind of a hindrance because everybody wants what they're familiar with. Everybody wants a book that looks like this guy or that guy, you know. So until a tastemaker finds this book, it's just gonna kind of flounder a bit, which is fine. You know, I'm not getting this to get rich. I'm pretty much just breaking even, and that's totally fine with me. Until that day comes, great. You know, I've got a few issues of all the issues actually left. So you know, I can pull a gym shooter and then like charge like $100 a copy. You know, eventually.
That's the dream, right? Have the
No,
table
yeah.
set up, like all the original mini comics and like the original black and white. You're like, oh yeah, yeah, those are the like $200 to $300 comics over there. I could
Right.
sign them for an additional $50 if you want it witnessed by CGC.
And there you go. Hey, you got copies. You got it in the ground floor, so hold on to those.
I, you better believe I actually like, dude. It's hard to explain to people like, when I didn't have a stroke or anything. I just started having my hands started shaking. Like I didn't know what was causing it. I was doing tattooing at the time, and I thought like maybe I was really nervous at first because I have real bad social anxiety issues, and I was like, maybe it's just drawing in front of people for the first time. You know what I mean? Because that's like kind of a whole learning curve unto itself, and then like it got progressively worse, and I went and saw my doctor, and I got diagnosed with an essential familial tremor, which basically just means that like every once in a while my hands shake, and when they shake they're like stupid crazy. And I gave up art for a long time, and you got me back into drawing, dude. Like I wouldn't be doing anything. I literally don't know what I would have done with this like last year, with like my health and money and stuff being away, without like your encouragement and being able to, for the first time in my life at 40, pick up a comic book and be like, I hope make that. Like I show my daughter pictures that I'm like, remember when I drew that? And I'll get out the
Yeah.
pictures, double tear, is really cool. I was just doing that on a stream last night. I just somebody went and backed your stuff last night because they were looking at stuff. They were like, "Oh, I want to see some more of your inking," and I was like, "You want to see something really cool?" I got out the 8 pages, and it was just, I don't know, it's really amazing, and I love your energy and like what you bring to the medium, as well as just like the community too, because like you said, and that's another thing we should probably talk a little bit about is Outstanding Achievement Presents, which is the Facebook group that you yourself created and moderate and stuff, which this book is, essentially like a cheerleader for, in name and stuff. So, do you want to talk a little bit about how that came about and what that is?
Well, sure, yeah. I think one of our jokes was that it is the longest title of any comic of all time. But what it is Outstanding Achievement is actually like the company name. That's like DC Comics, really. So, like the title could even change, and then it'll still say Outstanding Achievement Presents at the top. But anyways, that's besides the point. That's just a little side comment I always wanted to bring up there. But yeah, like with my group, I like to encourage people to self promote their comic books, and like feel free to post anything that, like, any link, any art, but anything that you believe in, as long as you want to show it to the world, like, go for it. And I really encourage like everybody to do that. The only thing is that Facebook kind of sucks now. So like when you submit stuff, like nobody sees it anymore.
It's hard. It's a struggle, but the more people you get involved in the more in the community, the more interaction you get, the more traction Facebook will give it. That's why I talk about it here because it's a smaller community than the Cartoonist Kayfabe, Ringside Seats, and a few of
Right.
the other indie things. But I see a lot more interaction and like actual cross pollination happening in Outstanding. So I'd love to see more people, and there will be a link to that down in the description for everybody watching this, by the way, in case you guys are creators and want to check it out, or if you're consumers and you are looking for stuff to check out, because that's another really cool thing about that, just wandering across new indie books and creators and stuff.
Yeah, like everybody who's a member, really, they've almost every single person I've seen has presented something worthwhile. The stuff I want to check out, like on my bookshelf, which by the way is over that way. I've got about almost a whole shelf of books from Outstanding Achievers, and there's a few kayfabe books on there as well. They do good stuff as well. But yeah, I'd say there's probably about 50 or 60 books there, and there's something like, well, what, like 900 members or something.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good number because a lot of people are just fans, and my friends, remember I was talking about that comic store I worked at, and that guy, he's a member, so, and he doesn't create anything, so.
And those guys are super important. You need an audience, Like one of my old family friends was an art critic, and she always said that art isn't anything without somebody to observe it. So
Absolutely. And yeah, that I kept reinforcing that with Alex. He used to keep saying, like, I don't know why I'm part of this group. I really don't belong here. It's like, no, dude, you're the heart of the group. Like, you are something for us to aim at.
it's hard because, like, when you do stuff for other creators, you kind of always feel like, I don't know, for me, a lot of times I feel like they got the Nerf gloves on. Like they'll comment when they really like something, and you can tell when someone's actually like, fuck yes, this is awesome. Like with the nice comments or whatever. There's never anybody out there that's like, hey man, I love this drawing. You could like tweak this or do that, like give an actual constructive criticism. I always feel like people got the Nerf gloves on. And like comic fans are one of those fan groups where when they like something, but they see that little thing, oh, they'll fucking hone in on it and let you say
Oh
that.
yeah.
They're like, hey man, by the way, that little tangent there, you're like, oh, I never noticed that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. And there's plenty I never noticed until it's almost too late.
Those things are like tangents are the most horrible thing. We've seen, the kind of art I love to do with all the little tiny oh, fuck me, man. My brain is just not prepared for that stuff sometimes. Like those guides don't connect. No.
Well, actually, on you, actually, I wanted to say, like, you had problems as a tattoo artist, with your hands shaking and everything, but I think the world kind of ended for you for a little bit there, because I think you felt like I can't tattoo, like, art is over for me because I can't do that. I can't put somebody's body at risk. But it's like, no, man, it's just that form of art was over for you. You just had to wake up and just realize you can do the exact same thing on paper. And if your hand starts shaking, you just stop your hand. There's nobody waiting for you. There's just none of the risks associated with it. The very worst that you'd have to do is say, "Oh yeah, I gotta add some white out."
It was world ending for me because it was going to be my career and I was going to make money off my art and I was going to do something that I loved, and then that just like went away overnight, and I was like left working at Arby's, and I kind of put that shit in a box under the bed and walked away from it. And that's why like your title is super important, for me personally and you as a creator, because
I
you
appreciate it.
I mean, like you and Bob and a couple other guys really ride my ass. I wouldn't have done anything. I might not have ever actually like drawn again. And like that's really kept me sane this last year. And it's given me some of the first stuff that I can hold in my hands is like actual proof of getting anything out and like accomplishing something. Like, look, I don't suck. And it also like it got me over I don't care if my hands shake now. They go a little bit crazy and a line isn't exactly as straight as I want it, and so what? It's on a drawing.
And the thing is, that's really interesting to me, and to a lot of your audience. Hi, Bob, by the way, is that as shaky as you might be, you have one of the most steady lines that I've ever seen. Your hand is actually a lot more steady and a lot more in control than my hand, for sure. And I've got 4 comics already, so it's definitely not limiting at all.
It's just been a learning curve. That's how I treated it. I was like, I told myself for a long time, I was like, there's got to be a way to get back into it. And then when I, started talking to you, I was like, yeah, okay, you have zero excuses. Shut up, pick up a pen, try to do something, and try to do something different. Don't just try to do the same thing that you did where you're banging your head into a wall and you're going to get upset. Roll with the punches and learn.
Yeah, and back to outstanding achievement. There's a lot of projects by people at all levels of creativity, but they're actually creating something, like from amateurs to guys that are telling post-apocalyptic stories about vampires, blah blah blah. But they're really doing it. They're not just sitting there.
That's the important part, is getting
Right.
something
Well,
out into the world.
I remember when you first started drawing again, you were gonna do an Inspector Gadget story. I was wondering if that's still in your mind, or you just moved on for now, or.
I've got the script. Like, I didn't ever really want to draw it. I wanted to do maybe a cover or a pinup or something for it, but like, I'm so self conscious about my pencils and it takes me so long doing sequential art. There's just meh. And like, Victor Alpi was like, I really want to do that story. And I was like, oh, well, let me rework it because the way I had it written was like very Alan Moorish, because I figured whoever I worked with would probably just be some indie guy that was like, I'll draw it for free. I'm like, okay, well, here's a fun little 8-page script.
Right.
Giving somebody that, you want to be like, you open on a dark night, you're pulling in, this is what you see, this is the descriptions of everything. You work with someone like Victor Alpi, that
Yeah, he's
is,
a beast.
yeah, that's not what you give them. That's insulting. Like for me, like what you give Victor Alpi is like, it's nighttime, Gadget is coming up on a building and he fights like 10 dudes to get to this place, and you get me there. That's what he needs. And I was
Right.
like paring it down. And then Victor started working on Fantastic Amazement, and then he got picked up by Inky Knuckles, and it's just kind of like I don't know if like Victor is super pressed for time.
Yeah,
He's
for
going
sure.
places, so he was the guy that was gonna draw it. So I don't know. I would still love to see Inspector Gadget happen. I know he still is definitely would love to do it, but we'll see if that ever comes to fruition with him. I might. There's one dude that I've been talking to that's like a Russian cat who does art that I've been thinking I might kickstart a book around the end of the year and actually do something sequential. And that was like one of the stories that I was thinking about maybe throwing in the back, was like doing my Inspector Gadget story eventually, like finally.
Then there you go.
That's all you, man. It's all you. like paying attention to the Kickstarter. I was like, yeah, I could probably do this if I just got my head out of my ass, was organized.
No, I was kind of a catalyst, but at the same time, if you weren't ready to embrace that change, is really you, really.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, no, I didn't mean it like. I'm just saying, like, it's like, yeah, I could do that.
Right.
I just need to get my shit together. I could get the money together enough, and then and since I'm only paying for pencils, like I can ink it myself. I'm not ashamed of my inks anymore. I can actually like cut the cost basically right in half, so it's not
You're
nearly as
mastering the crow
expensive.
quills now, you know?
Hey man, I'm getting into brush and crow quill. Definitely like I'm pushing myself.
Right.
I sucked at brush always, so
So did I really you can even see it still in my digital lines. I still follow the same techniques that I used to follow, but it leads to a very organic feeling thing. Like I hear a lot of people criticizing digital art, but it's like, no, it's really the artist, not the actual art itself. If you really want it to look real, you can make it look real.
yeah, I do. I find myself because I think I do fall kind of into that category where I'm like one of those like old fuddy-duddies that's constantly poo-pooing digital art and stuff. And there are some artists like that I think don't ever quite make that hurdle. But I think again, like you said, and I was listening to Michael Golden talk about digital art yesterday and like how he was like very against it and then eventually realized that it's just another tool and
Exactly.
and that's what it is for me. Like a big thing like for me personally is like I am obsessed with like having art on my walls and like
Oh yeah.
having things from my friends. I'm like old and I grew up in a comic shop, so like surround and an old, the kind of comic shop I'm talking about,
Oh, of course, I worked at one myself.
that's what I'm saying, like the floor to wall with the books and like displays of figures and like imagery and stuff coming at you, and I just love that feeling and like getting original stuff from people that I love and like and feel attached to is like this really gnarly addiction for me. I know that's one of my big things with like digital and physical art. I won't lie. I will not lie.
No, of course not.
Because it's like, how long did I bug you? I'm like, well, whenever you feel like maybe if you want to draw me a picture, I'd love to have it. He sent me this amazing watercolor, and it's just,
Oh
I
yeah, I
love it.
remember that. I actually had forgotten about that.
Oh man, I absolutely love it. It's sitting in a frame right next to me that I gotta get. I actually have open wall space for it. It's going up on the wall. But
Nice.
yeah, I just that's like my hang up on it. But your digital art really does like have this super flowing organic nature. Like I've inked it and like learning your line structure and how everything like underlies all these really intricate like I don't want to call them ancillary because they're not needless lines, but they're like emotional, like floating lines. Cactus especially picks those up a lot, and you can tell a ton from like how he's feeling, like his emotions, just from like the lines on his body. I'm curious now that we're talking about that. Who are some of your like influences that you're drawing from there with your line work?
Myself, like really, like when I was like 20, I like pretty much decided to make my life an experiment, and I rejected like all outside influence or any outside advice, which was really stupid. But but I had my stroke. I decided, okay, that's the death of the old me. The new me is going to embrace these things. And I gotta say, the people that have influenced me have been my own cover artists. Like I look at like Sam J Royale, like the way he draws the characters, and I like I noticed like he draws the balloon with a darker area around his eyes. So I feel like I draw that way. I start adding like that effect, Or I look at like even like Dave Sim. I look at his smooth lines and approach, and at the most, I'm envious of that smooth line approach. But that's what I try for is try to get that smooth line, and now I'm gonna have to take Richard Friend into account when I'm moving forward, especially with Ubby and the way he drew Ubby.
Man, he killed that guy. That's so insane when I saw that. Like, Uncle Ubby is my favorite character. Him and Lonk are like my two favorites, like, ever. And, man, when I saw that cover, I was like, damn, I cannot wait to hold that thing and just, like, stare and marvel at this in person.
Yeah, it looks so animated. It's great.
So much movement and just like I'd say it, yeah, you guys will see. If you're watching this, hopefully I'll have it up in time. How long does the Kickstarter have left? Like two, three
I think
days?
4 days, 5 days,
Four?
something like that.
Okay. So the interview should be up. You guys should have at least 48 hours to go and check out the Kickstarter. Check out all the tiers and the different covers. There's a Dave Sim cover. There's a Richard Friend cover. There's some really great tiers where you can pick up the digital books that were previously released, physical copies of previously released. Do you want to just talk a little bit about the tiers that are available? You know much better. I don't know why I'm sitting here rambling about it. You can just tell people.
Yeah, no, yeah. The first tier is actually a $5 tier, but it's a pretty good $5 tier though. You actually get like PDFs of all four issues of the series for $5. Like, how can you beat that? There's no shipping or any of that, and you're gonna get one comic for $5. Here you're getting four. And as you know, there's tons of bonus material in the backs of all the issues. You've actually participated in that in the Christmas special. In fact, as I'm always fond of saying, Dave Sim said it was the best article about Jack Kirby he's ever read. And Dave Sim is a pretty well-read guy, so take that for what it's worth. And there's an article by Amelia Trimpe about her father and all of the artists she grew up around. Like she had Halloween parties with Bernie Wrightson and his wife, and doesn't really know much about Bernie Wrightson. If that sums up the kind of article it is. But yeah, I plan on continuing that. I don't think there's no articles in the new issue. Like that actually fell through for this month, but I'm sure in the next issue, I'll think of something to put there, and maybe I'll have to ask a certain jerk to write something, but we'll see about that. That's actually the first tier. The second tier is just the individual issue alone of the new issue, which is issue 3. Now, I accidentally put that it's a PDF, like when I was describing it, and I couldn't edit that down. And I think that's probably affected some people's choices. So if you see it saying PDF and $8, that's the actual comic, and you'll actually have the paper comic in your hand. And then I think that it's the Mega Collection, which has both Dave Sim covers, which are originally $20 each, and every issue of the comic book as well, plus a magnet of Froggo and any stickers that I have left, I'll send to you. There is a brand new sticker, so you're guaranteed at least one that you haven't had before. But chances are you probably don't have everything I've got. There've been several tiers that I've done here, and there's always been new stickers. I think no, that's right. There is another one where there's an anthology book that comes with the comic book. It's 90 pages. It's run by Steve Peters and Bianca Alumar, and it also it has Robin Barnard. It has Lee Thacker. It has a bunch of guys, but mostly it has me, which is wonderful. But no, it has an 8-page comic story that I drew based on a script that Bianca wrote. So if you're a completist, you probably want to grab that, and you'll have some more Jamesy.
Gotta
That's
get
I think $18.
gotta get that James in your life.
Oh
Get that
yeah.
Windsor-Smith fix, baby.
Oh you.
Well, tons of options. I do highly recommend you guys go and check out James's book. Yes, I've been involved with it, but I've only been involved with it out of the graciousness of James's heart, and because I really am behind what he's doing, not just this series, but the entire Outstanding Achievement Presents kind of banner and brand, because I think James is the kind of ambassador that independent comics needs right now. So I'm really happy to have had him onto the channel and just kind of get a chance to let you guys talk to him. If you guys want to learn more and get like really nitty gritty, deep in depth, I've done like 3 interviews with James over on my Instagram channel. You can check those out. I always make sure to archive those. And we do hang out once a month, the first Friday of every month. Me and James hang out with Richard Friend on his channel, and we do a show called The Three Jerks. And you can get another healthy dose of James out there. So we'll, make sure that you get your James Windsor-Smith fix in. And thank you again for being on, man. Is there anything that I missed or anything you want to bring up or talk about or anything before we get off of here, brother?
Nope.
Right on, man. Well, thanks again for being on, and I hope you have an absolutely amazing day, bro.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
All right, guys. Well, remember, as always, keep reading comics and keep supporting independent creators. If you did enjoy what you saw, make sure you hit that like button. Think about getting in the comment section below and letting me know if you really enjoyed what you saw. Make sure you Hulk smash that subscribe button. If you do that, make sure you ding the little notification bell so you never miss another video or premiere. Again, if you feel like you're in a position to help the channel grow, think about using the link in the description below to sign up for my Patreon page. For as little as $3 a month, you get access to tons of behind-the-scenes posts, updates, exclusive content like uncut interviews, and you can even get your name in the credits. If you want to support the channel, if Patreon is not your thing, have no fear. You can finally sign up for membership right here on YouTube. Just hit the little join button and make sure to select the tier and the perks that fit you best. If that's not enough, you can also make one-time donations towards specific goals or just tip the channel using the Ko-Fi link in the description below. And you can even pick up your very own JerkComic shirts like the ones you see on the screen now. As always, this video was brought to you by the Jerk Broadcasting Service, as well as generous grants from the Patreon, Ko-Fi, and YouTube members you see on the screen now. I seriously want to thank every single one of you that supports the channel and helps make these videos possible, with a super special thanks to my loyal Wednesday Warriors, Channel 10, Chasen, Clinton Salvini, and Mike Dolan. I really hope the quality and content is getting better, and I can't wait to see where this next year takes us with your continued support. Thank you again for helping this crazy dream of mine become a reality, and for sticking with me. I hope you all enjoyed, maybe even learned something, and as always, I really, truly, and honestly ask only 2 things. Keep it in those local shops, and keep reading comics.